Exactly 20 chapters after the first presentation of the Tobi Roppo, we are reintroduced to the strongest headliners within Kaido's crew, but this time, they're ancient Zoans. Hello, my Nakamatachi, this is JoyGirl with a review of chapter 998, Ancient Types. We get another fan-requested cover page, this time with Enel chilling with a cat listening to music, but as we draw closer to chapter 1000, I imagine this is one of the last fan-requested cover pages we will see for this year, with a color spread sure to come in the Millennial chapter, if not as early as the next one. But that's enough about the cover page, let's talk about the actual chapter. We started where we left off last chapter with Onigashima up in the air, and it seems like Kaido's lower subordinates are not aware of this power. In terms of reactions, it seems that only Kaido's top-ranking officers and Yamato are aware of Kaido's Flame Cloud ability. Is this because these members of Kaido's crew have witnessed it during their initial settling in at Wano and forming their base at Onigashima? In my Onigashima discussion video, I postulated the possibility of Kaido having moved Onigashima from someplace else, and maybe that's how Yamato and some of Kaido's officers are aware of his abilities if they were present during this time. But the chapter moves away from this pretty quickly to give us an update of the performance floor where Dr. Marco has come to aid Dr. Chopper. A few things I'd like to mention about this segment because Oda fit in so many details in just a few pages. Firstly, under a different context, the panel with Marco using his flames on Chopper could change one's perception of what was happening, which is exactly what happened with Zoro and Brook, who came to Chopper's furious rescue when they thought Marco was harming him. Though they were obviously mistaken, I thought this was a beautiful touch that injects some homey Straw Hat love and sentiments into a chapter that was predominantly centered around a different crew. Marco's ability is hilariously named Phoenix Pyre-Apple. I mean, you gotta love some self-referral humor. Queen trying to convince the Beast Pirates that Chopper won't be helping them seems to suggest that Chopper won't have such an easy time reproducing the antidote as he now will be the target of a Beast Pirates chase. But I hope this leads to a moment where Kaido's crew actually interacts with Chopper and they realize the difference between the Straw Hats and the Beast Pirates, leading them to turn on Queen, which would result in another classic shocked Queen's face, which we did not get to see in this chapter. Marco offering to take up Zoro to the rooftop was expected, but it also seems like the offer was open to Robin and Brook, which is interesting because this could lead to potential fights for these characters, which is well overdue, so I would be excited to see it, but more on matchups later. If Robin and Brook do indeed leave with Zoro, Chopper won't be alone because the samurai are staying behind, and Oda, per usual, strikes a nice balance between sentiment and comedy as they call Chopper and Brook Raccoon Dog and Skeleton as they offer to keep our Straw Hat Doctor / mascot safe. And as has been suspected, Marco's flames can be used to aid in stopping the spread of the Ice Oni, but his flames aren't the magic cure, giving Chopper the time to do his thing and produce enough antidotes for everyone with the assistance of some friendly faces in Miyagi and Tristan, the Mink Doctor and Nurse. So it does seem that Chopper's duty in this arc is focused on his doctor side and not so much on fighting, or at least for now. And I've mentioned before that I do appreciate Oda honing in on the unique talents of the Straw Hats, but in saying that, I would still personally like to see a Chopper fight, as I would like Wano to be the arc where each Straw Hat gets a major fight, which brings me to the bulk of what was contained in this chapter, the introduction of all the Tobi Roppo in their Zoan forms, which seems to be the setup of some of the upcoming major fights here at Wano. And starting with the first Tobi Roppo to showcase his full Zoan form this chapter, we got Drake, who is in his Allosaurus form, attacking Apu and holding the long-armed tribeman in his mouth, because Allosaurus are carnivorous and Apu having longer arms means extra meat, right? He didn't seem to like the taste of Apu though, because he quickly throws Apu to the ground and tells Zoro to leave the floor with him, to which Zoro replies confidently and praises Drake's talent of choosing the winning side. The next matchup that is seemingly being set up is between Sasaki and Frankie, and we see another dinosaur reveal with Sasaki, who is now confirmed to have the Triceratops ancient Zoan fruit. The prospect of a robot versus dinosaur fight reminds me of classic Japanese TV shows. And if this matchup is final, I'm so hyped because this would be great for Frankie's character. Sasaki seems to be portrayed, or at least has the appeal of being one of the strongest members of the Tobi Roppo, along with Who's Who and Drake, but of course Drake is no longer in the equation because he's now switched sides. It would be a good matchup with similar tactics, I imagine, what with General Frankie's drill on his head and Sasaki's horns, and both of them with tough skin or armor or whatever you want to call it. The two are even posed similarly in that double panel, which I might add was a gloriously hype panel. Sasaki looks super fierce with all of his spikes. But aside from the combat, I am also still interested in the possibility of a connection between the two, as I have been mentioning in previous chapter reviews about the possible relationship to Grandma Kokoro. Perhaps if Frankie reverts to his original form, Sasaki will recognize him. It was previously revealed that Sasaki is 34 years old, which would make him only 2 years younger than the 36-year-old Frankie, and maybe Sasaki will recognize Frankie as Cutty Flam. My bet is that a young Sasaki might have witnessed Frankie trying to stop and getting run down by the Puffing Tom back in Order 7. I mean, it could even be that Sasaki, if he indeed is a fishman, helped Frankie get back onto land. The next devil fruit reveal is not that of a dinosaur because, like I mentioned in the past chapter review, Black Maria's devil fruit ability is indeed that of a spider. To be exact, model Razamigale gravogeli. After looking it up, I discovered that this is a bird-eating spider. So, we have a man-eating character, but a bird-eating Zoan devil fruit. And of course, knowing that lots of female characters in One Piece are named after birds, which only fuels my speculations of an upcoming fight with Robin. I'm reminded of how Sanji fought with Khalifa back in Enies Lobby, and we all know how that turned out, so I don't think that Black Maria will be Sanji's final fight unless Black Maria is somehow in disguise. Either Sanji makes Black Maria fall in love, or Robin comes to the rescue and fights her. Some other things to mention from this scene: Black Maria has her own Jolly Roger. It was previously mentioned that some of the Tobi Roppo were once captains of their own pirate crews, so perhaps Black Maria was a captain of an all-female crew because that double spread panel with her and her companions all inching closer to Sanji really reminded me of Amazon Lily. Going back to Black Maria's devil fruit, but this time its appearance, because it is quite unique in that her lower half also has a face. Black Maria's Zoan form is somewhat gifted looking in comparison to all the other Tobi Roppo Zoan forms, which does lead me to wonder why. I mean, perhaps it's a hybrid, but this does seem unlikely considering she wasn't introduced to be in her hybrid form this chapter, nor was any other Tobi Roppo shown in their hybrid forms this chapter. Could Black Maria be actually a gifter whose devil fruit is closer to the original Zoan fruits than others? And perhaps she has risen to the ranks of being a Tobi Roppo, seeing as the Beast Pirates is a meritocracy after all, which would then be very impressive in that case. Anyways, one of the women with Black Maria is Sarahebi, the teacher at the beginning of the arc who was giving kids false teaching that Orochi was the hero of Wano. And before we move on, I can't not mention the classic hilarity of Sanji, who despite being in the face of what most people would see as terror, is again hilariously appreciating that he is in the presence of so many women. Which brings me to an earlier scene, up on the 4th floor where Luffy and Jinbei were seen still fighting fodders on their way up to the rooftop. The exchange here about where Sanji went is pretty funny, especially considering what we just discussed. I mean, we know why Sanji took a detour, but seeing Jinbei mistaking that Sanji did it out of his intention to fight a strong opponent, and even Luffy scrutinizing his own ability in observation haki, is a hilarious little bit. Jinbei then ends up suggesting that he should also stay, setting up the next possible fight and another devil fruit reveal: the ancient saber-toothed tiger. Which explains the name of Big Cat Cafe up on the 4th floor. Seeing who's who in his Zoan form surrounded by his feline crew all perched on pedestals or roaming around on the floor really did remind me of a cat cafe. And this matchup has so many flavors. We've got cat versus fish, and this could result in some really fun combat, I think. I mean, the fangs of Who's Who and Jinbei are placed in reverse to each other, and for example, Jinbei could possibly use his fishman karate and throw water onto Who's Who's crew, what with cats hating water. It was a surprising matchup for me, but it makes sense if you look at how Who's Who has been portrayed as one of, if not the strongest, members of the Tobi Roppo. Jinbei in turn is the strongest member outside of the monster trio, and you could even make the argument that he's only second to Luffy within the Straw Hats, But I think one of Oda's goals in this arc is to clarify the power levels amongst the Straw Hats crew, and this would then be a great way to show where Jinbei stands. We've also got to remember that Jinbei is facing Who's Who's entire crew. So Jinbei defeating the entire crew would make him still look good, because for now, it's understandable that the perception may be that Jinbei, having been a former warlord, is way stronger than a Tobi Roppo and would be better fit to face off against the Calamity. But a fight against perhaps the strongest Tobi Roppo and his entire crew isn't so bad for Jinbei as a matchup. I don't know how I feel about that old lady in Who's Who's crew who may possibly receive a karate chop from Jinbei. Yikes. Aside from the excitement of this matchup, Jinbei also delivers an awesome line in this chapter, preferring his title as the Straw Hat's helmsman rather than Warlord of the Sea. It fits Jinbei's character as he continues to drop a great line in every arc he's in since joining the Straw Hats. And just as I was pondering about the potential backstory between Sasaki and Frankie/Kokoro, we're now faced with the question of who is Who's Who? I'm trying to think of all the times and places we've seen Jinbei to see if Oda dropped a hint. The only thing I can think of is if Who's Who was an impaled down prisoner who saw Jinbei. Because the wording was once when you were a warlord, which means Jinbei must have still technically been a Shichibukai at the time. But moving on, as the matchups get clearer, it's still hard to see who Brook may be fighting. As part of the Straw Hats, you would expect him to fight one of Kaido's high-ranking officers, as that's what seems to be being set up here. For Brook, the way I can think of it is if Robin doesn't end up fighting Black Maria, he could take Sanji's place versing Black Maria and will probably enjoy it more. Also, this would add another connection to Thriller Bark, which seems to be a trend in Wano, because we did see Brook defeat a spider back in Thriller Bark. But if this does happen, who will Robin fight? Is she going to focus on finding the poneglyphs instead? Because don't get me wrong, a Brook versus Black Maria fight sounds good, and the thought of Brook dropping the "can I see your, joke to the entirety of Black Maria's all-female crew is hilarious. But in saying that, personally, I would prefer Robin to fight Black Maria. It just seems like a wasted opportunity if it doesn't happen, and it seems to be a perfectly good matchup, and it's overdue for Robin to showcase more of her combat ability or arsenal. Brook versus Apu is also a possibility if Apu isn't down for the count. This could also even out the matchup a bit, especially since the portrayal of Apu as a supernova is viewed to be stronger than Brook, who is not considered as one of the top fighters within the Straw Hat crew, or is at least outside of the monster trio, two of whom are supernovas. But Apu is a bit worn out at this stage, so may be an apt opponent for Brook. And so if this is the matchup, this will add to the theme of giving the fight some flavor, because even apart from the fact that both of them are musicians, Brook spent time during the time skip with the Long Arm tribe, so this could be part of their dialogue. Also, it seems a hint was dropped in this chapter when Brook readied his sword to fight Apu, so it does seem this matchup is possible. Like I mentioned before, Marco offers to take up Zoro, Robin and Brook, but I don't think they will all make it. Perhaps they will also be stopping on different floors to fight an enemy similar to what Jinbei did in this chapter. So Brook may stay behind on the performance floor, or if he isn't facing Apu, either he or Robin would replace Sanji on the third floor so that Sanji can fight a Calamity. But that leaves just Zoro and Marco going up onto the rooftop, unless Marco of course takes Sanji as well, or Sanji would find his own way and say end up fighting Queen. And Drake, as he mentioned this chapter, would then go on to help the supernovas fight Kaido. That now leaves us with just Marco and Zoro, and if King is up there waiting, this raises the question, who stays and fights King? Is it Zoro because he always fights the strongest subordinate of an enemy crew, or Marco because of his insistence recently that the Straw Hats go up to fight Kaido, and of course this would then give us the much anticipated aerial battle. This would also allow Zoro to fittingly join the supernovas in the fight against Kaido, and this might just be a bigger question than who is Who's Who. But we can't forget our other Straw Hats, and on that note, Page 1 and Ulti are in their Zoan forms, now outside the dome, still searching for Nami and Usopp. In my opinion, I think this would be perfect if they do end up becoming Nami and Usopp's opponents in this arc, because being outdoors may assist the two weaker Straw Hats in fighting against much physically stronger opponents. Nami could do things with the weather, maybe in combination with Usopp's plans. For example, I can see Nami using her weather knowledge to accelerate the growth of Usopp's plants into gigantic, stronger weapons. But now, enough about potential future matchups and Zoan Devil Fruit reveals, because this chapter ends with a different sort of reveal and the possibility of a past matchup. And that is that Yamato's friend, and a character whom we are all familiar with, has another tie to Wano, as it is revealed that Ace attempted to kill Kaido in the past. And now this does fit with Ace's nature. He has challenged most Yonkos throughout his life. I mean, we've got Whitebeard, Blackbeard, although this was before Blackbeard became a Yonko. He met Shanks, and it wouldn't surprise me if we later find out that Ace challenged the redhead captain to a friendly duel as well, and now confirmed to have attempted to kill Kaido. The man was looking for death. This raises some more speculations and questions though, such as, assuming Ace lost to Kaido, was he forced to join the crew and then escaped? Or was he tortured and asked to join but never did? And is this why Kaido was on his way to Marineford? Was he seeking revenge on Ace, or was he going to rescue him? Chapter 998 was a great chapter coming out of a break, jam-packed with the possibilities of future matchups, spurred by the reveals of all the Zoan Devil Fruit forms, although this chapter did see the end of Oda's trend in sprinkling in some funny smile Zoan uses. And in typical fashion, by the end of this chapter, we are left with more questions and plenty of hype. I mean, I can't wait to see these matchups unfold, and hopefully some answers. But on that note, this does bring us to the end of the chapter review. Please share your thoughts on the chapter by leaving a comment below. If you enjoyed today's video, please use the share and like functions, as this does help with YouTube's algorithms. And if you're not already, please do subscribe to the channel so that we can continue our One Piece discussions together. This is JoyGirl, and I'll see you again soon.